Good morning, Mike, and good morning, audience. How lovely to be here today as we talk about our journey into INN8 and we talk about T3. And really great to see everyone joined on what is a little bit of a cloudy Joburg today. I'm not sure where everybody else is from, but hopefully we get some spring rain. So, Mike, over to you. Today, we're going to talk about this exciting journey of INN8. A lot of our advisors would already know about our end-to-end investment strategy, why we're moving on to such a world-class digitized platform. And I know you and the team have been really, really busy with elevating our assets away from our standard list platform onto INN8. So I'd like to just hand over to you to give us a brief rundown of what we're going to be talking about today, and then more importantly, what our advisors can expect for what we're calling T3, which is our major elevation of the remaining assets of the standard list onto INN8.
Thank you, Famida, and thank you so much for everybody joining today. It's really great to be with you. I've got some good news. If you attended this webinar last week, then you can happily click off and go and do some like really important client stuff because we're duplicating the content. Last week's webinar is the same as today, so we gave you 2 slots to join. Hopefully, you don't lose too many participants. But yes, very exciting to be thinking about and planning for our third tranche of we're calling it Elevate, and we'll discuss in a moment why we gave it that name. But it feels like March 2026 is a long way off. But the reason is we don't want anyone to panic. There's lots of planning that's going into this. And so there's going to be quite a lot of preparation time and time for you to read our various collateral and get used to the concepts. And today is really about that. We're going to go through a little bit about why we're here. We're going to talk about the shape of and why we talk about elevate instead of migration and where the standard Lisp is going and the future at INN8. And then we're going to talk to some specifics. There's some very important topics that you have to pay attention to while your clients and you move through this process of elevate. Things like fees and products and how the process works and freeze periods and that sort of thing. And we're going to get into all of that detail, sort of as like a high level heads up, because over the next few months, you're going to be receiving some communications from us. You're going to be receiving some marketing collateral, frequently asked questions, and there will be follow-up webinars as well, where I'm sure last week we had lots of lively questions, and we'll get some more questions today. So looking forward to a good engagement. Thanks, Famida.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, Mike. I know you've been on this multi-year journey with INN8, and we're now at the crux. Very, very soon, there will no longer be a standard Lisp. And just take us through what our advisors can expect at that point. It is quite a defining point. Up until now, we were a little bit softer on kind of, who stays and who doesn't. But I mean, T3 is kind of that final push, and obviously the final close. And one needs that in order to kind of fully integrate into the new world. Take us through that a little bit, particularly for advisors online. T3 is quite a massive elevation for us, but also similarly, your clients aren't actually going to be on the standard Lisp any longer for much more. So, Mike, maybe just take us through that critical step.
Yeah, it's always great to just step back and orient ourselves. So, why are we here? And several years ago, the group decided to invest in a new investment platform. And that was for several reasons. But the primary reason was around advisor experience and improving our response to the way that investments are changing and the digital way of doing things. At the same time, it's also important when you're sort of running large platforms like this to reinvest and reinvent your back-end technology. And so the back-end technology at Standard Lisp is a piece of software called Compass, and certainly Compass has served us very well. But in the next few years, it's going to become sort of entering an end of life phase. For example, the experts that run Compass and know how to change all the widgets in the back are starting to retire. and whenever you need to make a change, you have to go and get them out of retirement. At the same time, the sort of demands from the market and the response to regulatory change and the response to advisor experience it is becoming more and more difficult to really improve those sort of on a legacy type system. And so several years ago, the um, our leadership saw fit to invest in a new platform. And so INN8 has been busy being built for many, many years now. And we've scaled it up and we've been rapidly onboarding advisors across various channels and setting it up as the platform for the group for all of their retail investment management needs going forward. And specifically, it's only for advisors. So it's an intermediated proposition at INN8. And I think that's what makes it fantastic for Liberty advisors because it's really built around your needs and fits into your compliance process. And so that's really
I
what,
know.
yeah,
No, no, go for it. No, I said I know we joked about me and the BlackBerry the last time, and the criticality of our advisors actually getting onboarded and getting familiar with the new system quite soon. And I think advisors on the line, we don't really have too much time. So the sooner you get onto Innate, get familiar with it, get familiar with how to service your clients on Innate, the better it's going to be for you as well as your clients. Now that we've got that critical context, and thank you, Mike, I think that's really, really important. But equally, I think we've got such a massive competitive edge because we've got this world-class platform that's highly digitized. That's going to make everyone's lives a lot easier once we transition into the world and get familiar with it. Um, Clients obviously will have to experience Innate, they'll have to experience the Innate brand. Advisors will have to be familiar with how to respond to some of these client questions. And you spoke about a ton of things that we'll be doing to assist our advisors and to obviously make our clients aware of the elevation of assets. So, if I can start at that point, what can advisors firstly expect once we are ready with our communication and engagement plan? This webinar is one of them, by way of example, but maybe just take us through the rest.
yeah. I always like to start off with, why did we call it Elevate? Because isn't this just a migration?
Yeah.
And I guess the problem with the word migration is often is a pause for concern, perhaps. People think that their terms and conditions are going to change or you're moving legal entities. And the reason we called it Elevate is because none of that is happening. So we've architected INN8 around the same legal entities that support the Standard LISP today. So you all know Stanley Wealth Management. You all know the Liberty Group Limited life insurance company. And so none of those sort of client contractual arrangements need to change. We don't need to go and get client signatures for any of this. It really is a lift and shift of data from one system to the other, and hopefully a lift and shift in terms of experience and the way that advisors go about doing business. And so all of the current open products on Standard Lisp today, the classic living annuity, the investment account, tax-free savings accounts, the three pension funds, those are what are in scope for tranche three. We will also be making a plan with Bold in terms of, well, there's two parts to Bold, but that's also in scope for tranche three. And so clients will effectively um, be communicated with, but once they go to sleep on the Friday at Standard Bliss, they'll wake up on the Tuesday and their balances will be on INN8. And it's quite seamless and effortless from a client perspective. What we might ask from advisors is part of the process is publishing client lists to you in a very secure way via our CPD portal. You'll be able to download those client lists and review everyone in scope. And if you want to communicate with them separately, you're welcome to. But at least you know who will be getting comms from us as part of the process. And so that's all going to be kicking off in the next few months.
And if you were an advisor today on this call, what would be the main takeaway that you'd hope to get from a webinar like this? And what would be the first step that you would take to try and get onto the journey, particularly as it relates to T3 readiness?
Yeah.
And you're very intimately involved in this, Mike. So maybe some advice from you.
So first things first is don't panic. We've got this. This has been our biggest priority for at least 18 months now in terms of getting ready to move client information and your records from Standard List to INN8. And so maybe just talking about the governance around this process is quite important. And so we successfully landed tranche one in May. It was a small subset of Liberty advisors and about roughly 4,000 client records from Standard List into INN8 in May this year, and it was very successful. There were no errors experienced as part of that process, and the team were very proud to have landed that. I guess the important thing for me was that was actually the seventh time that we had done that process. We had walked through that process
So,
six times in a test environment. Um, Almost like when you do a school play, it was a full dress rehearsal six times in the lead up to that May tranche, and we're preparing and about to go live with our September tranche two. Again, for a smallish, a little bit bigger subset of Liberty advisors. It's including some of the IFA audience and also a handful of SPFC advisors this month in September. And so they have all been communicated to and sort of handheld through the process. But in terms of sort of advisors who are new to the process, I guess the first thing is like, don't panic. We've got this. There will be lots of collateral for you to review, opportunities for you to ask questions about some of the nuances. And I've pulled out a few topics which we'll talk about today. But there may be very specific things that you are wanting answers on. And that's why we're starting this well in advance of March next year. And the other thing that you can do as an advisor, and I know many of the audience have already accredited and onboarded into INN8 and learned some of the journeys and potentially even done new business. But between now and December, I think is a great opportunity for you to sort of really get used to where your clients are going to be housed long term from March next year. And so that's really the key focus area is when you come to doing an investment deal or a living annuity or an RA, put that new client onto INN8 once you've been trained and onboarded, because that's the only way to really experience sort of what INN8 has to offer.
no, 100%. And thank you. We've got one question on the chat, but audience, just like the last time, we will send you a prize, something that hopefully you're going to enjoy. That's got some kind of innate branding. If you ask us questions, there is no such thing as a silly question. This is a brand new process. It's a brand new platform. You have the privilege of having Mike himself, who owns the proposition end to end, to answer any question you might have or any concern you might have. So please, audience, use this time. We've got another circa 45 minutes with Mike. So please, the last audience was really generous. They asked quite a few questions, and the feedback that I got was they were a lot more comfortable, with the process. Before I jump in to the question that we've got on the chat, there was a whole lot of nervousness before T1. We've had a whole lot of advisors going, no, 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 no. We just, we're really nervous. We can't do this. It's just like, the first time you want to go on, a ride. And you're a little bit scared, and then you go into the ride and you realize, oh, it wasn't that bad. And then you had this really successful T1 to the point where I think, as a team, you celebrated just how successful it was because the team was that thorough in the execution. You're now really, really, you've got a little bit more complexity. You've got a bigger, and I love how you say slightly bigger. It's a couple of billion bigger. And I know the team have been working really hard to make sure that every single detail is in order before we elevate the assets for T2 now at the end of September. And I mean, I guess, Mike, you started off by telling our advisors not to panic and not to stress, but give us some learnings. What have clients been asking their advisors? What are some of the critical questions that have come out of T1 that we could potentially share with this audience so that we can give them an idea of what they can expect pretty soon should, their clients get communicated to, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Yeah, so there were some great learnings, and we've actually implemented them as part of our tranche two in September. There was the first one is we've got global best practice is to communicate to both advisors and clients at least 3 times separately before March. Okay, so those comms are going to be going to you and your clients over the course of the next 6 months. And the first and the shape of those comms is very much first to advisor. And as part of that comms, you can see what would be going to your client. And then only once advisor have received an email, then the comms go to client. And that's going to happen in exactly the same sequence each time we communicate. So that's important. Then the content of those comms is also important. So the first one is sort of Stanlib branded because clients are exiting the Stanlib platform. Then the second one talks a bit more about the benefits of INN8. And then the third one involves a 30-day notice period, which is part of our regulatory requirements to notify clients of any changes. And so that actually gives the actual date in March when clients would expect these changes to happen. Um, from a client perspective, they really don't need to do anything. What they do need to do is once their accounts are activated at INN8, they get a link to create their online access. They don't need to sort of tick any boxes or anything scary. It's really just to access their INN8 accounts and view their statements and tax certificates, etc. And that's quite an important part of the process because our digital portal is our primary method of contact, both for you and for clients. And they can get pretty much all the documentation that you can there in terms of their statements and tax certificates. So it's an important place to sort of start that habit up front is if I want something, I go to the website and get it.
So, last question before I move into the open Q&A. You've done, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you've done a massive amount of work, you know, addressing system issues, fixing, any errors that might be on the system. You guys have become really, really responsive. I mean, I must be on 3 WhatsApp groups where the minute you pick up an error, you report it, you fix, and you're never going to have an environment audience where there aren't going to be errors. There are going to be errors, but it's about how we fix them, and it's about ensuring that we don't repeat them and ensuring that we're managing our advisors and our clients appropriately. Um, and maybe a little bit later, Mike, we can talk about the support structure in place for these advisors, should they have any questions or concerns or queries. I know a lot of them are asking some questions here, but maybe just a reinforcement of the lines of escalation and the support that's available to these advisors critically through this journey, and then when they get onto UNED.
Yes. So that's a great question. Importantly, both our Stanlib our current service teams at Stanlib and also INN8 have been trained up on Elevate, and they can answer all of your any question that comes up. They are really well trained and have written lots of tests. I passed mine with 90%, so I'm good to go. And then we updated that training for tranche 2, and we'll do a further update on the training for our people for tranche 3. So we've geared up from a education perspective. And then we've also planned the capacity quite closely. So calls into the call center, whether that's be Stanlib or INN8, we've noticed a change in the profile post T1, a very small change. We're expecting a slightly bigger change with T2. And then obviously by T3, we'll have a much fuller INN8 service environment as we steadily move most of the service people from Stanlib across to the INN8 environment. Because those, you want to get your call answered, you want to get your email turned around as quickly as possible. We've also
And
invested,
so,
yeah, so sorry,
no,
you
go
spoke
for it,
about,
Mike.
I think it's worth touching on incident management and particularly the big difference between, I guess, the old paper world and the new digital way of doing things is that when there's an incident on an advisor's account, he feels it very presently, very in the moment, because it's happening live, digital in front of him. And so we've built a really nice incident management team, which sits behind our service and operations teams. So whenever something happens on the web or with one of your instructions, it's not the person on the phone dealing with it. Somebody picks it up behind, triages it, and then liaises with various teams or external vendors to get those resolved as quickly as possible. Sometimes it affects many advisors, and that is what we call a severity 2 or severity 1 item, and those get resolved intraday or within 2 days. And then sometimes it's sort of only affecting one advisor, one client, and we'll fix that particular error but maybe there's a root cause behind it, and that'll go onto a backlog for someone to pick that up later in the month, so that it doesn't resolve again.
And that's really critical because even though this is a really highly advanced technological system that's, digitized, you haven't gotten the human at the end. And what I found really helpful is that there's always somebody looking at this in the context of the advisor experience required, but also the end client, which I think is absolutely amazing. And so, the fact that there's that thoroughness in the system is really important. And our advisors would obviously have access to the regional BDMs. They've also got access to Hello at INN8, and they can also call the contact center. So it's not like there isn't any support. And, let's not forget that you've got an incredible onboarding experience, on TNAT that really does make the difference because while advisors are still getting familiar with the system, they're able to actually utilize this onboarding service, which I think is actually really, really amazing. I mean, I wish they did that for me when I moved from BlackBerry to iPhone, but I had to learn a little bit by myself.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so
imagine starting something new from scratch. It's sometimes a little bit bewildering, and so I guess that's why the onboarding team is there. Whether it's one-on-one sessions or perhaps one-to-many, we're running a series of master classes so that we can zoom in on important transactions that you can get comfortable with on Innate. And I always say those first couple of transactions before you process them or your assistant processes them, give the onboarding team a call. Make sure you sort of know what you're doing because once you've done one or two, then suddenly you feel a lot more confident and proficient, and you can sort of transition to the sort of the ongoing servicing team to support you.
no, 100%. Sayurin had a question which we did answer live, but I just don't, Sayurin, I don't want you to think that we're not hearing you. And Sayurin's concern was really just that, there were inaccuracies in fees, on the statements and on the quotations. And he says, these issues need to be addressed. And I think you've got good news for Sayurin. So I thought, let's address that one.
Yeah, 100%. So there were several fixes that went in as part of our August release, uh, uh, all affecting statements and investment proposals. Um, as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of data that comes through on those items, whether it's fund management fees at the TIC level. There's a data feed we get from externally from Morningstar actually, and sometimes you get a gremlin coming through in those items, and it's important that we smooth those out. And then further on, there's still admin fees, advice fees, etc. The EAC table has been a long piece of work for us. But yes, we've certainly implemented several fixes last month, and there will be another round of fixes immediately after tranche two for anything that's left outstanding. I guess this is a constant incremental improvement environment. So anything that comes up, we log a ticket, we get it addressed, and then we move on from there.
Uh, Jerry has asked which products can we do directly on Innate now? And I guess this also goes back to, you covered it initially about the product set that we will be covering, which is the full extensive product set out of the standard Lisp onto Innate. So maybe we can just tackle that one, Mike.
Yeah, that's right. So remember, you can do new business into all of the existing products that you currently have at Standard Lisp. So I'm sure list them: living annuity, the three retirement funds, the investment account, and the TIFSA. We do have two new products on Innate, which is the endowment or the endowment and the sinking fund, and those are currently not in that form at Standard Lisp. So all of the existing products at Standard Lisp that you know and love, the same legal entities, all of those are moving to Innate in exactly the same fashion, all the same terms and conditions, nothing's changing. And then you will get access to, once you're onboarded into Innate, you pass your accreditation, uh, the um, the endowment and the sinking fund are new products on Innate.
I can tell you now, if I was an advisor, that would really excite me. At the moment, we've got 7 platforms that are open to new business. You can only do unwrapped investments on Standard Lisp, and then everything else that requires some kind of wrapper or life license happens, on the Liberty investment side. And as an advisor, this is actually, would be new, music to your ears because now you get the ability to do both your unwrapped as well as your wrapped investments all in one place. Manage your clients all in one place. Like, how fantastic is that, Mike? I think that's amazing. And a lot of the other competitor platforms don't have that. And I know you said, I must calm down and concentrate on T3, but there's many exciting things for advisors to actually latch onto here once we get into understanding, okay, there's going to be a period of change required. There's going to be some change management, but actually the virtues and the benefits of getting onto innate is the pros versus the cons here are, it's certainly a no-brainer. So I really like that. And certainly the feedback that we've got from a lot of our advisors is that they love that. And we also get, a lot more flexibility within the innate endowment, which is amazing. You get the same list of portfolios that are available, the same hierarchies, your model portfolios. It's really, really awesome. And then another great question, and this relates to T3, is it's an anonymous attendee, and they're asking where can they get access to their impacted clients? And they'd like to inform their clients of T3, which I think is a really great idea, by the way. So maybe we can talk about that, Mike.
Yeah, it's a great question. And let's just talk a little bit about the data, because this is all live data at Standard Lisp. You can imagine it's changing every day. Clients might do a withdrawal or a top up, or they move to another platform, or you get a whole lot of new accounts coming in. So this data at Standard is in constant flux. Okay,
Yes.
which is why we're certainly going to close to new business at some point, likely the end of December, and then we'll allow top-ups for February tax year end. But really, by March, there's sort of no more new clients coming into Standard Lisp. And I think that's the key part of this is we will make those client lists available to you on a regular basis as we do our own data analysis. And so, for example, now in September, we're doing tranche two, and part of tranche two is also figuring out who's not moving as part of tranche two. And those are going to be all the tranche three clients. And so, 1st of October, we'll have those client lists available to you as sort of like a first draft. So these are all your clients as of middle of September who would likely be in tranche three. Now, it's not to say that that client list can't change. Maybe client does a full withdrawal or whatever. And we'll do another cut in January, another one in February, so that those lists are then updated for you on a regular basis. How you get your list. So we have a thing called the Innate CPD portal. Regardless of T2 and T3, it's a great place to go and get CPD points. You can track all your webinars there, and you can make sure you get as many of your CPD points as possible. And so we're using that same secure portal to deliver and it's on an advisor level basis. Each advisor has their own login, and they're going to get a list of their clients, which is also password protected because, Poppy and all that. So you'll be able to download your list, put in your password, and then you'll find your list of clients on the CPD portal. And all of that's going to be communicated to you in our various emails that are going to be going out to the field.
But Mike, just as a proactive measure, nothing stops our advisors today from talking to their clients and going to their book reports on Standard Lisp and looking at those clients that you either might be doing an annual review for, or, say you have a conversation, or even sending them a short text to say, listen, we are going to be moving to a new system called INN8. If you do get any communications, just be aware this isn't, any kind of scheme. This is all above board. This is actually a brand that we're very comfortable with, as part of the group. And this is what you can expect. So I do think there is some proactive work that can be done to make your lives as advisors a little bit easier, because the elevation is imminent and it is inevitable. It is going to happen pretty soon.
Yeah, so that's
Now,
you'll see that come
yeah.
through. Sorry, if I can just touch on the brand there, Famida. Um,
Mm.
the group has been on this journey of specialization. And so certainly Stanlib will be around into perpetuity, but it's very much going to be focused on investment management. We want Stanlib to be the home for investment management going forward. And up till now, they've sort of been investment management and some platform. And Innate is the home for platform for the future for financial advisors. And so we're specializing in and showing like what digital means and how to run a platform. And from a brand perspective, yes, INN8 is relatively new. We've only been around for 6 or 7 years now. But as part of the consolidation of Liberty into the broader Standard Bank group, you'll start to see that INN8 logo. I think in the intro to today's session, you saw the little Standard Bank group writing below that logo, and the same kind of concept which happened with the Liberty logo, and that just shows we're part of the bigger group. There's several entities behind the INN8 brand as a platform. And then you also might have seen lots of press coming through over the past few months, talking about platforms, talking about INN8 and the broader group. And that will continue through to March next year to give us air cover and sort of build trust and credibility in this, I guess, relatively new platform brand.
No, 100%. And the marketing team have done an amazing job to ensure that you've built the right amount of equity on Innate. I certainly see that, across the digital space quite strongly. So well done there. Um, Dudu Zile had a question on fear mongering and how other advisors are potentially exploiting this process, and potentially trying to poach our clients away. Just given that they understand that we are going to be going through massive change and that there will be an elevation of assets, etc. How would you respond to
Mm.
concerns raised from our advisors, other than the proactive nature in which we've suggested that they talk to their clients about? Is there anything else maybe that you want
Yeah.
to add there, Mike?
And maybe for me, this is the ace in the back pocket that all advisors on the call can have today, because it's not often that
Mm,
as a platform provider, you get to build a brand new platform from scratch.
mm,
The secret here is that that concern may have been valid 5 years ago while we were distracted building this new platform, spending money. But this platform is ready now. It's ready for scale. We already have 12 billion on INN8. By the end of September, there'll be another 25 billion added onto INN8. And so this platform is scalable, it's growing, and it's the place to be for future. Now, if you look to the external market, many of those platform providers are all sitting on legacy systems to varying degrees. And they're all going to go through some sort of replatforming journey in the next 4 to 5 years. So now is the best opportunity for you to put forward, well, we've already done this. We've got a moat of all this development behind us. We have a brand new platform. It's ready for the next 20 years. So where would you rather have your money, on something that's just been built and tested, or something that's old and is about to be decommissioned? And I think that is a great argument for an advisor to have with a client. I'm not going to
mm.
name our competitors, but when they come and try and poach us, this Elevate process will be complete by March next year. And then it's all about new business and sales and adding and incrementally improving our platform for advisors. So I think if I was a client, I would, and I am a client of INN8. I was the first INN8 client, both on offshore and local. And so I'm a proud client of INN8. So yeah, that would be my argument to the advisor.
Thank you, Mike. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Jean says commissions and flows have always been concerns and queries that were raised, and sometimes there were issues with old investments that don't have flows, and particularly as it relates to Standard Lisp prior to Elevate. He says where advisor and broker have reached new agreements, will these issues be resolved, or maybe you can take that, Mike, and just let us know, how this, firstly, there won't be any impact from any kind of remuneration incentive perspective for advisors. And certainly, where we are aware of any issues, we are obviously actively resolving. But I'm going to allow you to give us the technical answer.
Yeah, thanks, Famida. That's a great one, because we know these are very important to advisors, is your PCRs and all related rem and benefits. And so I think the first point is we have set up INN8 so that whatever remuneration you're receiving on Stanlib, it's effectively mirrored on INN8, and that would apply for PCRs and a few other sort of measures that rem and benefits have in place. We've also improved and aligned the updating of data. So as you do a transaction, it flows through to the sort of PCR process in a very similar way to how Stanlib does today. And then the last part, which I think Jean was referring to, was queries and questions. Um, it's a live environment. So if you add a new fund or a new model portfolio, it's important that the teams align on the REM on those portfolios. But be that as it may, there was one I think in April this year. We had to go back and remediate a number of PCRs on certain model portfolios. Um, our data is much fresher and able to identify where we've perhaps missed something. Those are certainly behind us, and the process is working reasonably well today. Something that I do know that we're busy working on is just on that PCR statement, the ability to roll up those transactions
Mm.
is very important, just so you can eyeball them and reconcile them much more efficiently than today. So we definitely are working on that one with Liberty Rem and benefits.
No, 100%. And I know you guys have been very active in that space, ensuring that it's not just like for like, but actually that the reporting is up to standard. So thank you for that, Mike. We've got another question. Will innate platform investments qualify for ad-lib bonus at any stage? Mike, I know you have an answer, but I also have a propositional view for Mariska. But maybe let's start with you, and then I'll conclude.
Yeah, so I think we've looked at a few different ways to incentivize clients to aggregate their assets. And certainly from an innate perspective, we automatically aggregate at an ID level. We also aggregate any offshore assets that your clients might have. And, Standard Bank International has been rolling out, and we're including that going forward as well. And the last one is family pricing. So mom and dad and family trust, you can actually let us know which clients are families, and we can connect
Mm,
those for you in the back end to enhance that aggregation benefit. Now, I think that was a platform play to encourage aggregation of assets. So go and get all your pieces of business around the market and bring them onto Innate and pay a lower effective fee rate. From a group incentive perspective, I think we've looked at a few different other ways to sort of encourage adoption of platform and AdLib, and I think we looked at UCount as well. There's a few options out there, and
yes.
we'll certainly continue working with the various product teams to see what makes the most sense within the investment management and wealth space. So I don't want to promise anything, and certainly AdLib, I'm not sure
So,
about that one, but I think there's some nice things that we can do here in the future.
yeah, I think, one of the critical things that gives us a competitive advantage as a conglomerate now is that we can operate as an end-to-end financial services, group. There is no other competitor on the continent that can do banking and capital protected products and offshore banking and fiduciary and expatriation and all of these wonderful things that the bank can do with their balance sheet, as well as risk, short-term um, rewards, and then investments. And so it's a massive opportunity for us. And I think propositionally, what we've been looking at is, as Mike said, what is the most appropriate way in which we can get clients across into all of our propositions and entrench them or get new business depending on whether we have cross and upsell opportunities available by utilizing what is already available, but also by understanding what potentially has worked and what potentially hasn't worked. And those are the things that we're busy exploring currently. Dirk has got a question, and I'm going to shift gears a little bit because he wants to know, will BCs and Liberty managers that are impacted by the elevation tranches get access to the client lists and advisor names?
Yes, so certainly we will provide various distribution staff, regional managers, etc., with the lists of their advisors who are impacted. One of the requests that came through now for tranche two was just that firm level view. And so I think it's definitely acknowledged there's a like a reporting aspect here to like who's in and who's out. And we'll make those available for regional managers and other managers to see which advisors are impacted so that you can plan that. certainly that's available. It won't be on the CPD portal. We'll probably just share that via email. Um, and then the advisors themselves will get the client detail. I don't think it's necessary for all regional managers to get like a really long client list. But if that is something we need, we can certainly work with the various leadership teams to provide those in a secure way.
Thank you. I think, yeah, I think that's going to be critical, but also equally critical will be just understanding our POPI requirements and the rest there. So Muzi is asking about our debit dates and whether we can provide some flexibility over the two predetermined debit dates that we've got currently, given, different clients have got different salary schedules.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good one, and it's certainly on our list of things to look at. Probably for next year, I think there's a lot of activity lining up for tranche three, and I'm just not sure. I don't want to promise anything before Christmas, you know. So, so maybe not for this Christmas, but maybe during the course of next year, we'll add a few more debit dates for clients.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I think that's more than we would have expected, and absolutely. And one of the nice things about moving on to one system is you just get to build and fix on one system and not multiple systems, which also makes advisors' lives easier and makes your life a little bit easier because you actually then concentrate on kind of, the new age platform as opposed to all the other legacy platforms, which I think is going to give you a lot of space to add a lot more flexibility down the line, I'm sure. Not putting you in the hot seat or anything. We got a really positive comment from Linda, and Linda says, "This sounds very exciting. One must have a very positive mind. The world is changing, and we need to change too. So thank you for this." Thank you, Linda. That's really spot on, and really appreciate your optimism. It's what we're going to need as we go through this massive change now for T3. And then Sayurin's question is around why we don't pay PCRs for one invest and one or two of the stand-up funds. Would you like me to take that, Mike?
Sure, go ahead, Famida.
Great. So Sayurin, part of the Remen incentive scheme requires us to ensure that we are effectively um, managing on a margin basis. So where we've got to pay commission as well as PCRs, you understandably that comes with a cost. So in order for us to afford PCRs, we've got to have to make enough margin from the platform, from the product line, and then from the underlying portfolio in order for us to pay a PCR. Now, the PCRs are calculated at an average at a rand per milli. Now, the problem is when you're looking at a passive fund, so when you're looking at either an index tracker or a passive fund, they usually are cut to the bone. So you don't have much space for adding additional fees for any extra margin because they are meant to be very cost efficient. And that then means that we're left with very little margin from a PCR perspective. But remember, you still get platform PCRs. So you'll get 50% platform PCRs if you are in LAP, and then obviously if you're in IFA and SBFC, the PCRs for BCs are a little bit different. But certainly in the LAP environment, you do get 50% of the platform fees, but you obviously won't get recognition for the drop down because it's going into a passive portfolio. And the whole point behind a passive portfolio is actually it's passively managed. And so I know not the greatest answer, but that's kind of how it works and why we've decided to go that route and why we're being transparent with you as advisors as it relates to the charge and fee structures. Mike, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think that makes complete sense to me, and sometimes advisors are sort of at the end of the series of decisions, and sometimes it's just really interesting to hear sort of the background behind that. So,
Mm, mm. No, 100%. Um, and thank you, Sayur, and I see he's happy with the answer. I appreciate it. Um, Mike, now that we've covered quite a lot of questions around product set, usability, commissions, PCRs, what next? In the next 15 minutes, what would you like to cover around T3 and importantly, what advisors and clients need to be aware of that we might not have covered in the 45 minutes?
Yeah. So I wanted to just touch on advice fees quickly, uh, because I think a little bit of upfront preparation can prevent unnecessary questions down the line. I want advisors to be as prepared as possible. And so the principle on advice fees is that obviously we want to pay you what you're due, but we don't want to overpay you and overcharge client, and we don't want to underpay you and undercharge client. So
Sure.
that's very important, and we did get that right as part of tranche one, and we've certainly we're aiming to do exactly the same for tranche two. The nuance is that Stanlib process advice fees on a slightly different calendar, from the 10th to the 10th each month, roughly. And they also take a sort of a month end value, which they then use for advice fees. On INN8, we accrue a daily value in the system, and then we deduct that from the client account at the end of the month and pay advisor. And so as we transition, uh, and I'm just going to use September as an example, we'll run fees on Stanlib up until the 10th of September for those in tranche two. Then for those in tranche two, we'll run another special fee run from the 10th to the 19th. And then once the clients land on INN8, we'll run a fee run from the 20th through to the end of September. And so those fees will show up separately either at Standard Lisp on your fee statement or on INN8. But I promise you, we have you covered. We're only going to charge the right advice fees, and it's been one of our main testing areas. So if you do pick up any discrepancies in March next year, very happy to answer all of them. But the 3 or 4 questions we've had, we've managed to resolve, and the advisors who were in T1 were very comfortable with our evidence and answers. So that's just want to make sure we're on that one. And then just in terms of clients paying investment administration fees or platform fees, that's uh, there may be some historical arrangements at Standard Lisp, and I'm going to use the TIFSA as an example. So the TIFSA is a flat 20 basis points or 0.2%, and we're going to be honoring that fee into perpetuity for all TIFSA clients. There's some terms and conditions that come with that. So, for example, when you move your TIFSA across from Stanlib as part of Elevate to INN8, the TIFSA fee will remain at 0.2%, but those assets will not automatically form part of aggregation with the rest of the platform
Mm,
assets. You can choose for clients at any point in the future to move onto the prevailing platform fee because maybe clients actually got lots more
right.
money and their effective fee once aggregated actually might drop below 0.2%. But that's a decision you can take in future with client. And so the principle really is clients pay exactly the same that they were at Stanlib or potentially even benefit further from aggregation once they're on INN8. And so we're not making any clients pay any more fees than they were. It's the same or better.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. And certainly with my conduct hat on, clients seem to be better off, not worse off, which for me always, always, always makes me smile. Um, Sandor Donner's got a question. He says, from last week's session. So, Sandor, you've actually made it for 2 sessions and you've stayed for both. Firstly, well done.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
hope
Sandor.
the innate marketing team is listening because we appreciate that engagement. Absolutely. And Sandor's saying he remembers, that we said from the 31st of December that Standard Lisp is likely going to close. And that's what we're planning, right, Mike? I mean, no guarantees, obviously, but that's certainly I would if I was an advisor budget on that. But any comments there, Mike?
Yes, so Sandor's talking about new clients. So you can imagine that at
Yes,
the moment there might be some Section 14 transfers in progress. We want all of those to settle down if there's some in-flight transfers happening.
of course.
And so from the end of December, we'll be closing Stanlib to new clients. But then in January and first 2 weeks of Feb, we will allow you to do top ups, particularly for TIFSs and RAs. So please get those instructions in for any of your existing Stanlib List clients to top up for the tax season, February 2026.
Good point.
And we'll set out all of those timelines and cutoff points in subsequent emails. But essentially, we wanted to make sure that existing clients were able to top up their Stanlib accounts in advance of the tax year, and then we have a nice clean break in March when we move all of the remaining investments to INN8. So hopefully that makes sense for the audience.
It absolutely does, and it's a really critical point. So thank you very much, Mike. And then anything else that we might have missed in the session, Mike, that you think in the last 10 minutes with our audience members that we can potentially cover? And audience, we do have 10 minutes left. So if there's any other questions on T3, please feel free to ask us.
Yeah, so bear in mind, we're not going to bother you too much doing challenge. We know how important that time of year is. But certainly in the lead up to March, we have been remediating data within the Standard Lisp environment for the last 3 or 4 years. And that activity often just involves some poor person at Standard Lisp trolling through old app forms and looking for pieces of data. But from time to time, we need to go and confirm something with you, the advisor, and very occasionally perhaps out to client. Maybe there's a tax number that's not being validated properly, or perhaps there's a cell phone number on record which has only got 6 digits or something like that. There is going to be a lot of data remediation happening on our end. We're going to try and limit that to advisor impact, but we may reach out on a few clients to ask for your guidance in terms of some of their static data. And so that, yeah, please just bear with us. We want to try and bring as clean a client profile across to INN8 as possible.
Absolutely. Just Sandro's got a clarifying question. He says, for new client, if I'm only on T3 move, then I can't invest for new clients. I think you absolutely can, Sandor. But the suggestion is if you do have a new client, it would be so much better if you just onboard onto INN8 and do any new business on INN8. Do you agree, Mike?
Yes, that's certainly the intention, and certainly we've tried to I guess, work with advisors as part of the tranche one and tranche two efforts, recognizing full well that there's, clients you don't just do a deal in one day, right? It's usually a few weeks or sometimes a few months process leading up to that deal. And so I'd love for the audience to start to think about those in progress and in flight deals so that actually by the time March rolls around next year, all of those in flights are going to land on INN8 because from January you won't be able to place new clients on the Lisp. And remember, if you put any new clients on the Lisp for November, December, they will be elevated in tranche three. So they'll get a standard welcome pack, and then they're going to land in INN8, and maybe that's okay for you, and you can manage clients. But certainly, if I was an advisor, I would be sort of orienting myself around the new INN8 proposition and looking to get
Yes.
accredited and onboarded and trained as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Sandor, that would be the most appropriate thing to do. And there's quite a lot of collateral and literature that has been shared across the board. But you can also contact your BDMs or you can contact your SICs if you've got SICs, and they would be able to help you with the process that you would need to go through. We have got a very, very sleek training and accreditation program and really, really great onboarding specialists that can help you. And even if you want to do a small case, you maybe want to do a TIFSA, like Mark said, or, just something for yourself even, try it. It would make a world of a difference once you get familiar with the system.
Yeah.
Um, Mike,
I think the last
you,
thing advisors always say is the benefit of INN8 is actually the ongoing servicing. So managing
mm,
top ups, managing withdrawals, um, pointing clients to the right documents, updating static data, doing Section 14 fee renewals, all of that is available online. And certainly there's a really nice time saving that you're going to feel across your whole book of business once it's sitting on INN8. You no longer have to wait for a form to be processed at Standard Lisp. It's all in your control. So I think that's really something to look forward to. Yes, hopefully we do lots more new business, but certainly once clients are on the platform, it's way easier to service them as well.
great. So, Mike, in summary, um, we have this incredible journey that we've been on for a couple of years. We're now at the precipice. We are at that point where we have done the phased rollout to all of our advisor channels. We have done our first really successful tranche of elevation of assets away from what we think is an old and aged platform technology supporting Standard Lisp onto the new age INN8 investment platform. We are preparing very hard for our T2 tranche, where we're going to elevate slightly more complex products, as well as a bigger tranche of assets across many channels. And of course, we're talking to this audience about T3, which is the final elevation of assets. And then we would obviously like to prepare this audience for what they can obviously expect for T3, and we've covered quite a lot of that detail in our chat today, but we also covered quite a lot of detail around why potentially moving and onboarding on T8 would be a great idea now already before the end of the year. What have I missed? What
Yeah.
else can we share with the audience in the last 4 minutes?
Sort of a parting shot from me is,
Yes.
uh, obviously onboarding and accreditation is key. And if you're past that hurdle already, that's fantastic. But you've got a few months to still accredit on INN8. And then it's just look out for the comms. There's some really well worded emails. They're nicely branded, and I guess, more important than the emails, both for you and client over the next 4 or 5 months. It's the frequently asked questions. It's a beautiful, long, lengthy document, which, um, you know, I'm not saying, but maybe you want to upload it to your favorite large language model and ask questions of the PDF. But certainly it's very engaging. It's very well laid out, and many of our questions that we've addressed today, and many others, for example, freeze periods. As we get closer to the point, we're going to talk about specific dates when clients won't be able to transact any longer on Standard Lisp. And so those are all contained in the frequently asked questions. So look for those. There's a client version as well, which is a lot shorter and explains some of the branding and the group and the where Nate fits in and stuff. It's all very nicely laid out. So please do look out for those. They're all available to you. And then the masterclasses. So in addition to webinars like this, you've got many engagement sessions that you can log on. You can watch the replays where our team are just showing you sort of hints and tips about how to be more effective on the INN8 platform. And so I think if you attend a few of those, if you read the FAQs, you'll stand yourself in good stead for March next year.
So lots of anxiety, lots of trepidation, but certainly overwhelming excitement, Mike, especially for you and the team, given that you started this journey from its infancy to this really, really big and huge milestone now. Good luck to you and the team. You've done a fantastic job. You've taken on a mammoth task, and you've actually, quite close to fruition. I'm sure our advisors that have joined us for all of the webinars, not just the last two that we've had, would agree that it has been a massive journey, but it's been an incredibly, incredibly great journey for us. And it certainly will put us at a competitive advantage once we get through this. So good luck to you and the team and advisors. Please reach out if you've got any questions. We're very happy to address it even after the webinar. So thank you for your time, Mike.
Thank
It
you,
was really
Famida.
lovely chatting to you the last hour. And thank you to our audience. Thank you for attending. Appreciate it.
INN8 is a registered trademark of Stanlib Wealth Management Pty Limited, an authorised financial services provider.